So yesterday we began Perek Egla Arufa, discussing the unique parsha of Egla Arufa, and we saw yesterday that there were Zakanim would come out. We had Zakanim that would come out. Zakanim of Bezdin. We had Machloikis. How many Zakanim were there? Were there 3 Zakanim according to Shimon, 5 according to Yehuda, according to Eliezer ben Yaakov was all 71. But these Zakanim were the Zakanim from the 71 that sat in the Lishkas HaGazos in the Beis HaMikdash. What was their job? They went ahead and they were moeded. Right? They would go ahead and when the pasuk says, "V'yatzu Zakinecha v'shavtecha umadadu elaharim," these Zakanim v'shavtecha, these special unique Zakanim, they would go ahead and they would do the medida. They would do the measurement to see which one is closer. Okay, and whichever is closer has to bring the Egla Rufa. So now the Torah tells us, if you look at the pasuk that I have presented over here, and they would bring Eglas Bakar, Asher lo ubad ba, it wasn't worked. Asher lo mashka ba'oil, it never drew a yoke. It never moved. It never drew a yoke. We're going to see it's important today. They would bring it down to this place called Nachal. A Nachal, according to Rashi, is a valley. According to Ramban, it's a river. Esan, according to Rashi, is a hard place. That it wasn't worked. You can't plant it. They would decapitate it. Then the Kahanim B'nei Levi would come, and they would go ahead. Now the Ziknei of Kroiva of the Chalo, and they would wash their hands on the spot of where they would do the Egla Rufa. They would wash their hands on that spot. And then it says, v'amdu, they would answer and say again, the Lashon HaKodesh. That's what we had yesterday. The limud was in Lashon HaKodesh. The limud was in Lashon HaKodesh. And they would say, Yadeinu lo shafchu es hadam hazeh. Our hands did not spill this blood. The Gemara is going to ask, of course, but Talmidei Chachamim could be accused of murder. Ve'inenu lo ra'u, and our eyes did not see. That was said by the Zakanim. This next one, Kapel Ampi Yisrael Hashapadisa, was said by the Kahanim. So this parsha is what we just focused on. Will be the discussion of today's daf. This parsha will be the discussion of today's daf. So let's begin on the Mishnah on Mem Hey Amid Beis. Niftru Ziknei Yerushalayim v'Holchum. And after they did the medida, after they did the measurement, they would leave. And Ziknei Oisayir, the Kana of that city, may be an eglas bakar. They would bring an eglas bakar, actually mashka oil. That didn't go ahead and draw an oil. It didn't go ahead and draw an oil at all. The ein hamayim vein hamum paislaba by egla rufa. There was no psul of a mum. Even if you had a mum, you could bring an eglas bakar. Whom I read in Isol and Nachaleson, they would bring it down to Nachaleson, kimashmoi, which is kasha. In other words, it's hard. Afa pishena esan kasha, and even if it's not hard, it's kasha. But they would decapitate it from its back using a cleaver. And the exact spot where the decapitation took place would be asa to plant there or to work there in the karka itself. You could go ahead and comb flax over that area, and chisel stones over that area, because you're not doing work in the karka itself. You're doing work on the karka, but you're not doing work in the karka. Zikni oisa'ir, roichsem es yadayim, the zakanim of this ear that was closer, the Sanhedrin that had performed the decapitation, they would wash their hands. They would wash their hands exactly over that spot. They would say, says the incredulously asked the Mishnah, how do you answer these tzaddikim, Sanhedrin, would be murderers? Right? He didn't come to hands and we let him go. In other words, why would a person, the way Rashi learns, Why would a person steal from somebody? Because he doesn't have food. So therefore, that might indirectly lead to his murder. He tried to steal from somebody, and somebody killed him. So Besson saying we did not. We never saw him that we wouldn't have given him food that would lead to his death. In other words, had we seen him, we would have given him food. And we would seen him and left him without being Mekayim the mitzvah of Lavoya, of accompanying him to protect him. Right? In those days, the roads were dangerous, so we would have accompanied him to protect him. So we weren't responsible for his death, either by not providing food or not accompanying him, because we never saw this individual in our life. Mm-hmm. Then the Kahana Moimrim, the last parsha, Kapalam Yisrael Asher Padisa Hashem, Valtitein Dam Noki B'Kerev Amecha Yisrael. And the last parsha was unnecessary to say. If the parsha, if you look at it, here we go, guys. Look, the Kakanim would say, "Kapalam Yisrael Asher Padisa Hashem Valtitein Dam Noki B'Kerev Amcha Yisrael." But these last words, "V'nichaper lehem Adam," that was not stated by the Kahanim. That was not stated by the Kahanim. That was just, that was, as we're going to see right now, that was "V'nichaper lehem Adam ele Ruach HaKodesh Mivasra," and Ruach HaKodesh would inform him that they got a kapara. Emisai shetasu kacha Adam mischaper lehem. That anytime this was performed, the Adam was mischaper for him. It says the Marsha fellas, this was a crazy schooler. Anyone who performed the ritual of Egla Rufa, they would find the murderer. Anyone who went ahead and would perform the ritual of Egla Rufa, they would find the murderer. I think it's very good right now. Let me just digress for quite a few moments. There's a Rambam I'd like to share with you, a very famous Rambam at the end of Hilchos Me'ilah. The Rambam very often, when he concluding paragraph of the Yad Chazaka, which is only halacha, he would go ahead and tell you his views on certain things, philosophical views, conceptual views. So very often, if you want to see a very interesting raid, you look at the Rambam. You look at the Rambam. Very interesting ways to look at things. So this is the one that's at the end of Hilchos Me'ilah. So I share it with you. It's a fascinating Rambam. The Rambam says, I don't want this. This is gone. Okay. It's quite long. It's right for a person to think into the mishpatim of the Torah Kadosha, and to understand the matter according to his ability. And if you can't find a reason for something, or a reason, don't make it less in your eyes. In other words, often when we do mitzvahs, the ones that make sense to us, we're very, very careful in. And the ones that don't make so much sense to us, they're less in our eyes. The Rambam warns us, don't do that. Don't go ahead and say, well, this is no different than any other mundane matter that has nothing to do with Torah. For example, look how chama the Torah is regarding being moil behegdish. And in other words, you can go ahead and take eights that belong to hegdish, and you be chayit ve'keren v'chaimish and bring a carbon. Im eitzim v'avonim v'afa v'efer kiman shenikra shem adon ha'olam aleihem bidvarim bilvad sheniskachu v'chol hanoig behen minig choyel ma'alba. Anyone who says we go ahead and we elevate these inanimate objects by calling the Shem Hashem on them, making them kodesh, and if you go ahead and treat them in a mundane manner, you're going to pay the price. Nonetheless, tzarech kapara kal v'choymer lemitzvah shechakak lanu HaKadosh Baruch Hu shlo yivur adam mehem. Kal v'choymer mitzvah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was chakak, he literally engraved upon us that we should not rebel against them. Just because we don't know their reason. Don't think about them as a mundane way just because you don't understand them. You should watch all my chukim. there's a din of watching and performing lechukim kimishpatim. Just like mishpatim that we do understand, chukim which we don't understand, we should perform with the same amount of hislavos, the same amount of direction and happiness. V'asiyah yidua, v'hisha yisiyah chukim, to do them. V'ashmira yizah behem v'layidma shehem pchusim min hamishpatim. Don't think of them less. And again, the Rambam goes on. V'yitzrei shel adam noikvei behem v'umas ha'olam ashiv malayim. The yates of a person literally says, why do I got to do this? Come on. And the umas ha'olam, they question you. Kigoin issa basa chazir. Why can't you eat pig? What's wrong with eating pig? Ubasa b'chala. What's wrong with eating a cheeseburger? Ve'egla rufa. And why that strange ritual of decapitating a calf? Uparaduma and a red heifer? Usei mishtaleach, throwing it off a cliff, an animal on Yom Kippur. How much David was pained by the minim, the people who kaifa b'Torah. Shahi Mashiv Malachukim would go ahead, and these are Jews, and they be kaifa on the Torah. That they would set up according to the limited intellectual understanding. Tough. So again, you have an idea over here of the whole purpose, and Egla Rufa is one of them. So it's important to realize that Egla Rufa is crucial. It's, even though don't you look at it, it's such a strange ritual. It really is, and don't think of it less than any yontif that you keep. Don't think of it less than Shabbos. Don't think of it less than of kibbud of aim. Don't think of it less than you shouldn't murder. Don't think of it less than any of the mitzvahs that you clearly understand.
What is that? Which Rambam is that again? The
Rambam is the last Rambam in Hilchas Me'ilah. The last Rambam in Hilchas Me'ilah. Me'ilah is found in Avodah. I think in the Rambam in the Yad Chazaka. It's the last Avodah or Kabbanis. It's one of the last one. I'll send it to you. Exactly, but nonetheless, even though it seems to be a chayk, the Sefer HaMitzvos does come up with a reason, and it's a fascinating reason, and I share this with you. You can see this, guys? You can all see this? This is tough. This is mitzvah Tuf Lamed Daled. Tuf Lamed Daled. You can't see it. Okay. Let me you'll see it in a second. See it now?
Yep, got it.
Okay. So this is a mitzvah at the end that the Sefer HaMitzvahs brings. This is Sefer HaMitzvahs, and this is the mitzvah. If you hang on 1 second, I'll tell you where the mitzvah is. Just hang on 1 second. I'll give you a source for this mitzvah. But that Rambam is such a crucial Rambam, fellas, for all of Yadas, because we all are sometimes not as nizer in some mitzvahs as we should be, simply because we don't understand them. And they're all the same. They're all powerful. Especially you have azhara of chukim that you don't understand. Now, mitzvahs is tough kuflamed. Tough kuflamed is his mitzvah. So listen to his reasoning why there's an egla rufa. Misharshe mitzvah kadei sheyisorev leiv kol adam, to arouse in the leiv of every man. V'roisem es ha'maisa god lazeh, the maisa of the egla rufa. Asifa ziknei ear, you bring out the sakena of the city. Ugidoy lecha, and the great people. Again, according to Lezer ben Yaakov, guys, you bring out the melech, the Sanhedrin, and the Kohen Gadol. You bring out everybody. The Yichu Parah, this is Shver, that's why it says Parah. Usually Parah is an older animal. This is the Negla. That's the base. Shehi behema gedoyla. V'yelchu ba'asifa u'bahamoin. You go out with a gathering of tremendous amount of people. And u'bahamoin with a tremendous amount of publicity. Shakol chafetzim lirois in yonam eila el nichutz le'ir. Everybody wants to go ahead and view this and see what's going on. Ulekol arifasoi, and the sound of the execution of the decapitation of this kif. Yechedu kol hashoimim, they'll tremble. Yisayre rayonim aladavar. and their ideas, their minds will be aroused regarding this matter. The chol hayadeya b'dava, and anyone knows anything about this possible murder, miyad yemu levavai v'toyer machshavasai lahagid mashu yadeya lefi asakanim. This was a publicity. This was publicity to go ahead and possibly find somebody who knows something about what happened to this poor individual. That's what the Sefer Mitzvah said. The Sefer Chinuch says. As a result, you will find the murderers and you'll remove them from your midst. Aside from finding out, there's a tremendous huelis in this great action. Piercing Godel. That how much the Zakanim and how much the Gedolim want to go ahead and revenge the blood of the one that was killed. So even though the Rambam calls the Paraduma, excuse me, Egla Rufa, one of the Chukim, but we don't have a mitzvah behind it. We have a suggestion from the Sefer HaMitzvahs in Sim Tuf Kaflamid, going ahead and explaining it really is a means of getting more information instead of going around and getting a sketch of the individual and going from having this is to save a lot of detective work. And then you're told it would be very matim with the Maharsha, who says it's segula if you go ahead and perform, right? The segula, if you go ahead and perform the Egla Rufa, the process of Egla Rufa, it'll lead to what? It'll lead to the segula of finding the murderer. So putting it all together, I think it's a very nice Hakdama.
Laser, good morning. It's a very practical reason.
One second, you didn't say.
I know. Benji convinced me not to say that anymore. It's a very practical reason, but if that's the reasoning behind it, why do you have different situations where, depending on where you find the body and whether you have to do the Egla Rufa or not?
That's the Gzeirus HaKasav. That's the Gzeirus HaKasav.
There you don't want to find someone.
You always have a Gzeirus HaKasav.
No, I get that, but with this reasoning, you would think that you would have to find it.
Again, the reasoning is the reason behind what you have and understand. It doesn't go ahead and you have cases if the guy drowned and he wasn't killed by a sword, if the guy was strangled, again, it has to be dafka by a sword. That maybe he was decapitated. That's the hagdara of the mitzvah. You always have in every mitzvah. You always have different waivers because of Gzeirus HaKasav. That's Gzeirus HaKasav.
Okay.
Again, your point is well taken, Meir. Your point is well taken. But again, just because, I think just al regel achas to answer. I know it's not a good teretz. I was going to think that maybe if he was killed by a sword, he was killed. In other ways, you're not sure if he was killed. If you find him hanging by a tree, obviously he was hung, right? So that's why teretz is not a good teretz. Anyway,
so it fits in. What do you do to the egla?
Yeah,
you decapitate.
You're decapitating, right? Exactly. That's the mida keneged mida, right? That's the way you kill it. That's what we saw yesterday. Cholol, it has to be through a sharp object, right? We spoke out yesterday when it said you find it underneath a gal or you find it hung. It still was killed by a sword. You're just not finding it on the al adama, or you're not finding it bigoloi open rather than toman hidden. Just a general overview of a little more depth to what the Egla Rufa was about. But it seems that there was Egla Rufa. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says two of the mitzvahs that they never saw were Ben Soru Mora and Ir Nidachas. Two of the mitzvahs they never saw Ben Soru Mora and they never saw any Ir Nidachas. It doesn't say they never saw an Egla Rufa. So as bizarre as you might think it is, in fact it did happen. In fact, it did happen, right? It's very, very interesting. Okay. Anyway, says the Gemara on Memvav. Okay, after that very general, easy to listen to, we go to a blot that is all limudim. Okay, that is not as easy to listen to. In other words, it's an introduction to a difficult blot. Says the Gemara, "V'yiyu mum paisel be'egla." Now we saw it in the Mishnah that a mum does not pasel be'egla rufa, but we know we have a relationship between egla rufa and paraduma, As a result, Rabbi Stern says all the time, paraduma instead of egla rufa. I'm constantly making that mistake. Now we know a paraduma can, even if it has my two hairs is going to passel. It has to be even here, this colored here, and certainly a mum, whereas an eggless baka wouldn't passel. Says the Gemara, we have a limud that a mum should passel by eggless baka mikal v'chaymer. Uma para she'ein hashanim paislis behen para where years don't passel. It can be any years. Mum passel ba, a mum would passel. Eggless sheshanim paislis ba, an eggless which is supposed to be less than a year old. Ein din she'ein mum paisel ba. There's more shiny hasam damakra asher ein ba mum. The pasuk says asher ein ba mum. It says by para aduma ein ba mum, and ba is the miyat. Ba mum paisel, ein mum paisel be'egla. In other words, dafka by para aduma is mum a problem. It's not a problem by egla, but by para it is by egla. Elamiata lo yesei avoid this a shar avoid this priceless ba. If that's the case, if you're going to go ahead and have this limud, then all avoid this should not passel by para. Aloma am Rabbi Yehuda Marav hanichala oidish shel sakin. If you put on the para aduma, if you go ahead and put on it a load, it would passel. Ube egla ad shetim shoych. In other words, once you have a miyat that didn't buy a mum passels by paraduma, then putting a load on a paraduma shouldn't passel because it says that what oil. It says an oil that never went on it. So mashma only oil would passel, but not what, not something else. Says the Gemara. Now that you can't say that. I'm gonna review them. Rav hanichala oida shel sakim psulo ube egla ad shetim shoch shiny para the afin oil only egla. No, it's para is different. You learn oil from egla. So just like egla just is any work. So to para any work. Right? Egla nami tese oil only para, right? Oil only para and dafka and oil and not any other work. It says Gemara hamir rachmana ba, right? It says ba dafka by there is just oil, not any other. Just over there, ba is the din you can't learn out paraduma from egla from paraduma because of the miyat of ba. It says egla nami ksiv ba. By egla it also says ba. Mi ba the egla by ba by egla mi ba lemute kachim. If you work an animal, you could bring it as a carbon. I would have a mina. You learn a kavachayma from egla rufa that if animal works, you can't bring it as a carbon. Uma egla shein mum paislaba. Avoid the paislaba an egla rufa, which a mum doesn't passel, but working does. Kachim shem mum paislabahen. Kachim where a mum would passel. Ain't a din is not a kavachayma. Shavoid the paislabahen. So I need ba to tell me dafka ba is the working passel, but not by kachim. I'll ask the question. Says what to catch him. Me leka the pastaba shanim. After all, that's for example, Korban Pesach has to be less than a year old. Says Gemara, it's the kra lahanach kachim the pastaba. When I need the pasuk, the kachim where a regular animal where one pasal. The kachim like pastaba avoida mehachan afka. You learn kachim out from egla rufa to egla rufa. Their but it passes avoida, but not what by kachim. I have another source. Mehasa nafka. It says by the different. We learned to the in Parshas Emor, I think, the different mumim that passel. Averes like shavar, like choretz, like abelos, like garav, like alefes, like sakrivu elo Hashem. Eli atamakrav atamakrav kachim sheneva avoida. So why do I need a basik of ba by ba that avoida passels? Why do I have and by kachim it doesn't passel? So why do I need the limit from egla rufa? I can learn from kachim itself. Dafka mumim passel, but not the work. Dafka mumim passel, but not the work. So it's the I still need what the pasuk. I need both pasukim. I would have said that what only where you do avodas heter, avoida heter. So therefore I have eilus to tell me no, that wouldn't passel. I'll avoid this issa, but it's avoida of issa. Let's say you. Let's say you worked on Shabbos. I might think that you couldn't use that animal for a carbon because you didn't have there with the animal. Let's do us at tzricha. You need ba dafka by what by ergla rufa is avoid passel, but not by kachim is avoid passel. Person who is a ben-necher, he makes himself like a nachri to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You shouldn't be makriv. You call Eila at the makriv of at makriv kachim. Should never been avoida. So l'chayri you have three pesukim that teach the same thing. You have ba, you have ela, and you have a second ela. So it's Sotah. I mean, I would think that when is it kasha to mingus carbon if you worked it when it's chulin before you gave it kudish saguf. But let's say you did the work when it was kachim, ema litz through. I would think it's asa. So tzricha, you need all three. Okay, so we have what's al limudim, guys. We have a paraduma. If you put anything on the paraduma, it's going to passel. If you put on an oil, it's going to passel. And even if you store something on the back, it's going to passel according to Rav, which we're going to see in a second. And we have limudim of ba by Egla Rufa. We have Ela by Bali Mumim. We have Ela by Ben Necher to teach me that whether you did an avera of heter, a work of heter, whether you did one of Isser, whether you did it when it was schooling, in each case, nonetheless, you were able to bring an animal that worked as a carbon. Let's you leave a bag on something on top of the paraduma, psul, it's going to be pasul. And the egla until you go actually physically work the egla, right? You have to make a move. Mesivei, oil, only yellow oil. Shara voidus minayin. How do you know any other voida that's pasul? Am kavachayma. Uma egla shein mum poisel ba. An egla rufa that a mum doesn't pasul. Shara voidus poisel ba. Not only in oil, but any other voida would pasul. Horisha mum poisel ba. Ain't a ditch shara voidus pasul ba. If you can have a question on this kalvachaymer, nemekan oil, v'nema lahalan oil. It says by paraduma oil. It says by egla roof oil. Malahalan shar avoidus poisel, just by egla shar avoidus paselba. Afkan sotah paraduma shar avoidus paselba. Mayim nashchaloyim. What's the question you would ask on the kalvachaymer? Again, what's the kalvachaymer? Madach egla which mum doesn't pasel, right? All avoidus pasel. Paraduma, which mum does pasel, anal din that other avoidus pasel. And if you have a question on the kalvachaymer, I have a geser shava of oil. What's the pasel? What's the pasel question? Pitema ikal nifrich mala egla shekain shon and places by egla rufa is shon and places by. It has to be an egla which is less than a year old. Inami kachim achiach kachim will disprove the kalvachaymer because even though shon and places by in avoidus paselis ba, so nema kan oil, but nema lahalan oil. So I destroyed the kalvachaymer. Either one or two ways. One pircha that maybe, you know why a mum you can't work on an egel is because the shanim paiselba. Mashen came paraduma which shanim doesn't pasel. Maybe otherwise it would. Or what's your kalvachayim? Madach mum paiselba. Certainly you avoid the pasel. You find klotchim mum pasels, and yet you still could work it, right? So the chayr I destroyed the kalvachayim, and therefore I need a geser shava oil from paraduma to Egla Rufa to tell me Sharavoidus. My oil by Paradum by Egla Rufa is Sharavoidus, so too what by Paraduma oil is Sharavoidus. Ailis Malahalan Sharavoidus, Afkan Sharavoidus. Umimakim Shabas, Kasha, Malahalan Achet Timshech, Afkan Achet Timshech. In other words, it should be a Kasha on Rav. What did Rav say? Rav said that you're just putting something on top of it. Good? Just putting something on top of it. But if you're learning oil, if you're learning at Gezer Shava, right? So just like Egla Rufa, you have to physically move it. So too by Paraduma, you should physically have to move it. So just putting something on the back of the Paraduma shouldn't passel. You, Rav, said simply putting something on the back of the Paraduma passels it. If your oil, if your source for your limud is Egla Rufa, the Egla Rufa says Ashetimashech until you go ahead and pull it, meaning you have to do something on it. Putting on the Egla Rufa alone is not going to passel it. So who are then putting something on the Paraduma should not passel it? Kash on Rav. And for the Gemara Tanoy, it's Machlokes Tanoyim. And Rav has a Tana that he goes according to. Einachinami. This price of oil, you would say that if put something on the paraduma, it would not pass and because you limit this from Egla Rufa. But now I'm going to show you there's a Tana who holds just simply using the paraduma, even without being mashach, it would pass. And he doesn't learn it from Egla Rufa. And this is the one that Rav said is din according to. Again, what was Rav's din? Just putting something on the paraduma will pass the paraduma. Tanohi, the para. And the one who learns from gufa the para, you're going to see what it's going to pass. The Tanya. Oil, only yellow oil. Shara Vitus Minayan, only an oil. How do you know anything else? Oil mikol makam. Mashaloi Allah aleha. And came out tamalama oil. So if anything is going to be chayav, why did you learn oil? It says oil paisel ba b'shasa vaida and shloi b'shasa vaida. If you put the oil on, even if you go, let's say you have no place to store your yoke, and you say 1 second, I'll just put it on the axe without the intention of using it. It's going to pass. However, Ben Shalai B'Shas Avoida, Shar Avoidus Ein Poiseles Ela B'Shas Avoida. Shar Avoidus would only passel if not for a second I put it on. It would only passel if I want to work it. Says the Gemara, Ve'ema Asher Loyola oils prat, Klalu prat Im B'Chalo Masha prat, oil in Midachrina lo, only an oil, not in a bundle with something else. I says, well, Asher Allah, Asher is a riba, who would include everything else. The Tanya Nami Gabi Egla. High gavna oil, only yellow oil. Shara avoidus minayin tamaloy mashaloi ubad ba. Right, it's that you didn't work it. Become welcome. Came out tamaloy oil paisla mishas avoid mishlas mishas avoida. Shara avoidus impossible mishas avoida. They mashaloi ubad ba cloud oil prat color prat to color el mashav prat oil in midachin loy asher ribuhus. The bottom line is we see if you learn from para itself without in other words you learn from para itself that anything that's on the para would be asar. Even Shlei B'Shas Avoida, I didn't learn oil from Egla Rufa. Again, if I learned from Egla Rufa, I would be limited to actually working it. If I learn from Para itself, anything, if I have in mind, guys, if I have in mind to use it and I put it on top of it, it would not be good. Oil, even if I had in mind not to use it, would be what? It would be asar. Amravo. Why mean Rabbi Yochanan? Meshichas oil bekama. When it says you have to pull it, how much? Amalei kimali oil, the width of the oil. The arka l'rachbay doesn't mean the length or the width. Amaluhu almerabanon Rabbi Kiva Shema Yaakov Shmei l'didim farshne mini Rabbi Yochanan. The shichas oil l'rachbay is a tefach. So in other words, if you go ahead and move the animal a tefach, which is the width, not the length, the width of the yoke, you pass the egla. Fred more v'lema tefach by say it openly tefach. Says Mahal Kamashmal and the chiddush is shiur the oil tefach. The shear of an oil is a tefach. Meaning, if you buy an oil, you can expect to have an oil with the width of a tefach. Anything less would be unacceptable. Why does the Torah say to bring an egla rufa benachal? There's a little agadata. Again, according to Rashi, a nachal is a valley. According to the Rambam, it's a river. According to the Rambam, you're bringing it on the side of the river. According to the Rambam, you're bringing the Rashi, you're bringing the valley itself. Go ahead and bring an egla that did not make paris. The yarif b'makam sheinois paris, and go ahead and decapitate it in a place that cannot make paris because it's a very hard earth. The chaper amishalei hanichalasas paris, and the mechaper and the one that you did not allow to do paris. My paris. What paris are we discussing? Elaim appear to review the production of the reproductive cycle and reproduction of children. Elmiata, Azakin Asris, Hachanami Layarpina, and you're going to tell me a Zakin and a Saris, a person who can't have children, there's no din of Egla Rufa? Mitzvahs. It means over here, you did not allow the person to perform mitzvahs. That's what it means, Paris over here. The Paris of a person is what is the potential that the person contains to perform mitzvahs. So you went ahead, you bring it to a place that doesn't produce Paris, but an animal that can't produce Paris, Stam an Egla that's less than a year old, cannot have children, and you're going to stop it from the person from doing Paris, but vis-a-vis the ground it was Paris, the animal it was Paris, but the person is mitzvahs. Umaridim Yisrael Nachal Esan, Esan Kimashmoy Kasha means it means a hard place. Esan Kimashmoy means what? It means a hard place. Just 1 second. Let's have some psukim coming up that I would like to be a little more accurate in reading them. Okay, so how do you know Eisha Kasha Shnemar Amid Beis? How do you know Eisha is a place that's Kasha and Amid Beis? It says Eisan Moshavecha, the Sim Basela Kinecha. So Eisan is Lashon Avad is where you live, and the Sim Basela Kinecha, and your Khan is a nest is your rock. So you see it's a strong place. V'oimer Shimu Harim Esriv Hashem, v'oisanim Moistei Aretz. And the son and the strong ones are the Moistei Aretz, are the foundations of the earth. It doesn't mean hard How do you know it means that it's old? Shnemar goy esan hu goy me olam hu. So Rashi points out that you can't bring earth from another place and put it there. It's got to be yoshan. It's got to be from that place all along. It says and they would decapitate it from the back. My timer. Arifa mechatas oif. They learn arifa from chatas oif. Rashi tells us by chatas oif it says bol mul arpai. Again, reminder chatas oif the kohen would do malika. He would take it in one hand and with his thumb, with a long nail in his thumb, he would go ahead and go through the neck and break and sever the trachea and the esophagus. So he went back through the back. So we learn mul oiref from chatas oif, and that's how you know that you have to do it from the back. The place of what where you do it, you can't go ahead and plant there or work there. It says a place which no work could be done and nothing can be planted. This means it's not in the past, right? No, it's even that place had been worked in the past. You can't bring a part of egla rufa there. It has to be even that it had never been used. The Rabbi Yoshia says no. Rabbi Yonasan and name Rabbi Yonasan, he also says lahaba, it's a future. In other words, if it had been used in the past, you still can perform the ritual of egla rufa there, as long as you won't use it in the future beyond that. Rabbi says regarding the future, everyone agrees that you can't use it for the future. It can't be planted, which is the future. The argument is whether it had been used previously. Rabbi Yoshia doesn't say it had not been worked at all. Mashma, it could have been worked. Rabbi Yoshia says which hasn't been worked. So they both hold it means what? The future. Rabbi Yoshia mashma, and Rabbi Yoshia says it's mashma l'sha'avar. But Rabbi Yoshia asher riboy. Asher is a riboy, right? And so that it doesn't change that asher riboy, that it doesn't change the to be marba l'chayra that even in the past. So Rabbi Yoshia would hold that what even in the past it couldn't have been used, and Rabbi Yoshia said no, it could have been used. Yeah. You're able to work on top of it. You're able to go ahead and comb flax there and chisel stone there. The ground itself. You can't use the ground for any purpose, but it has to be mikomokim. It has to be the ground itself. Okay, if you can't use it for any purpose, itself. So to any work, the ground itself. Yatsa Srik Pishton, if you're combing flax, the Nikam Avonim, or chiseling stones, even though it's by the ground, it's on top of the ground. Not using the ground itself. Why don't we say Ashal Yab is a general rule? Lo Yizarei Prat, Klalu Prat Ein B'Chal Mashav Prat, Sri in Midachrin Aloi, says the Gemara, Asher is a Ribohu. Same limit we had in the Yamanala. The people of the town, they would go in and wash their hands exactly on that site. This is again, these are the Canaan who decapitated it, the victim of the city. Just to say egla, we would know the nachal. Why is it that it's saying arufa? Because we know the egla is al makom arufas and shel egla. It means this place where what you have performed the decapitation. They would say, "Yodenu lo shafku es adam hazeh veinenu lo ra'u." Right? The chiali beinu also shebeis din shayfkin damim would enter our minds that the bezdin would spill their blood. What does that mean? What does it mean? Lo bali yodenu. The person never came to us. Upatriminu b'lei mizaynos, and we let him go without food. That we have to go ahead and try to get food from somebody, which resulted in his murder, according to Rashi. Nor did we see him and not accompany him. We're going to have a whole sugya now about levaya, about accompanying people. We would go ahead and we would force a person to accompany people outside the city. Again, in those days, it was a sakana. The schar for accompanying a person has no share. It's tremendous mitzvah. Shnamar. Okay, the background over here is that in war, Bnei Yisrael came to a certain city in Parsha Shoftim, and the city was impenetrable, and they saw a person come out of the city, obviously through some type of hidden place. And they asked the person to go ahead and show them the place. The person accompanied them and showed them the place. And as we're going to see, the scar for this person, this individual, was great. So from here, we can allude to and see the great scar of a person who is Mekayim the mitzvah of Lavoya. It says, "Vayiru Hashemim ish yotzim in the air." They saw a person leaving the city. Vayomru lo hareinu noes moba ya'ir v'asinu imcha chesed. Show us how to get into the city, and we'll do chesed with you. Uksiv vayarim es moba ya'ir, and he showed them. And then he walked with them and showed them. That whole city was wiped out by Klal Yisrael again. It was the city of Canaanim. That person and his family, similar to Rachav, were unharmed. Okay, if the pasuk continues and says, what happened to that guy? Guys, this is fascinating. Listen to what this guy did. This person that survived the city, he went to the Eretz Achiti. He built a city. And he called the city Luz. And Hushmar Yamazeh, it's the Luz city until this day. Now, what do we know about Luz? Tanya, he Luz Shetzaifim Bat Cheles, that the Zavulin who would get the Chilazim that would use to make the Cheles, they would dye it over there. He Luz Sheboy Sancherev Le Bilbul. When Sancherev came to mix up the world, he did not touch the city. Duvchanezav Le'echriva, who came to destroy Eretz Yisrael, did not destroy the city. Malach HaMavis ain't lo rishus la'abavayim. Malach HaMavis had no rishus to go ahead and kill anyone there. Elas l'keinu shabab is man shedaiton katza alehem. Let's say people got to the point where they were just too old to go on. What would they do? They would leave the city and they would die. This is the city of Luz, right? Of the Luz bone, where we spoke about the city of. This is the Ponce de Leon fountain of youth, right? This is the city that is looking for eternal life, right? This was the place. This Kanani who didn't even go ahead and speak with his mouth. He didn't even walk, but he went ahead and showed them how to get there. Look at what happened to him and his family forever. Someone who actually accompanies someone, the great scar you have for accompanying a person. How did he show these people the city? He twisted his mouth towards the city. He showed them out with his finger. That he showed them with his finger. That's the raya. Okay, so now we have a few members of Rabbi Shua ben Levi regarding what? The mitzvah of Levaya. Again, a nice digression. Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Someone who goes on the road and he has no one to accompany him. What should he do for protection? Yaslik b'Torah. Let him be oisik b'Torah. Shneimar ki livyas chein heim l'roishecha v'anokim l'gargoisecha. That Torah is going to accompany you for your head and it'll be a chain around your neck. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. The 4 steps that Paro went ahead and accompanied Avram. Shneimar v'yitzav alav Paro yanoshem. And he commanded him, and they sent him off and his wife. Children were there for 400 years. Again, a lot of raid on this. I thought God's Mitzrayim was caused by my Eidah. I thought God's Mitzrayim with Lamed Beis in the Dorim was caused because Nasa and Garia, when he went to battle against the 4 kings, he used other people. So this could be that it was the 400 years had to be somewhere. This could be a caused location in Mitzrayim. That would be a possible explanation. That in other words, it was caused by other reasons. This looked just caused location. Anyone who goes ahead and accompanies his friends 4 amis at the beginning of his trip, he guarantees that his friend nothing better will happen to his friend. He accompanied him. Yes, on the way, Zeka happened to Rabbi Yitzchak, and he was saved right because of Rino accompanying him. Okay, other similar stories. Tan Rabbanan. Harav v'talmid ad ibur shaleh. The share of a rav to a talmid. How much does the rav have to accompany the talmid? It means to the ibur of the city. You might remember this from Erevin, 70 and 2/3, 70 and 2/3 outside the city. If you don't remember it, then you don't remember it. At Shabbos, 2,000 amis, Talmud the Rav, Ein la share. Talmud, the company is Rebbe, there's no share. The Kama has good, there's no share, but how much? Rav Sheshes is at parsa. At parsa is like 4 mil or 8,000 amas. Okay. Le'amorin ella Rabbi she'ena muvik. This is only his Talmud muvik, not Rebbe muvik. Abo Rabbi muvik, the Rebbe taught him most of his Torah. Shleisha parsayis is mamish is 24,000 amas. Le'amorin ella Rabbi she'ena muvik. Okay, we just said that. Rav Kana alvaya Rav Simi bar Ashi mi pum nahara ad base sinyasa de Bavel. Rav Kahana accompanied Rav Shimi bar Ashi from Pum Nahara to base Sinisa and Bavel, and that's a place that had a lot of palm trees growing. He met the Hassam, when he got there, Ramleh said to him, Rav Kahana said to Rav Shimi bar Ashi, Badei dam Misai, the height since the Bavel, Mishnei Adam Rishon Nisu. These trees of Bavel, they're mamish as old as Adam. Now, L'chari was a Mabel. I don't know how they be as old as Adam. So Amalei, Rav Shimi bar Ashi said, Karton Milsa, you reminded me, the Amar of Yosef Bar Chanina, Ma'idechsiv be'eretz le'avar ba'ish, v'yashav Adam, in a land that where a person that passed through and no man. What does it mean? Ish and Adam are the same thing. Me'achash le'avar heichen yashav. No one passed through there. How can anyone sit there? Me'achash le'yashav heicha avar. Ella eretz shegaza Allah Adam Rishon li'ishav misyashed. If Adam Rishon said this land will be possible to inhabit, it'll be inhabited. Eretz shaloi gazer aleim adam rishon, but a land that was not gazer aleim adam rishon, lo nisyashva, would not go ahead and be settled. Rav Mordechai Elavil Rav Ashi me'agrunya vad bekipi be'amrlei ad be dura. He accompanied Vad to be dura. Okay, we'll stop over here because we're going to begin a Maisa now with Alicia. Okay, everyone should have a great day.
Thank you.